Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. Our intention is to increase well-being in a million people, and I can't do it alone. So that's why I have platforms like this and amazing guests like Angie to come join us. Because if your well-being gets uplifted by virtue of this conversation, and then you tell other people about it, and then that ripples out, and a million people will happen very quickly. So I'm so excited to have our guest tonight. She's an Akashic Records guide, and she's a purpose and prosperity coach. You guys all know her. She's got the biggest smile on the planet. Angie Kraft Meldahl. Hi, Ange. Welcome.
Hi, Nori. Thank
Aw.
you.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so excited. There's a few people with us. Please say hi in the comments. Let us know you're here, and just activate the comments for me. This way, if you have questions, I can get them to Angie in a timely fashion. So I have questions, Ange. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I think. I hope I can answer them all.
I think you can. Okay, so what are the Akashic Records really? What are they?
So, the Akashic Records are the records of your soul in this lifetime and every experience that you've had, right? So, it's a huge library of information. And in the Akashic Library itself, there's information about endless topics. There's a record for everything that's ever existed, right? And even in the future, going forward, there's records for things. So, like your house has a record, your business, your soul, like we talked about, you personally have a record. Everything has a record. So it's an endless amount of information that exists on the quantum field.
That's amazing. Is it ever called anything else besides the Akashic Records?
So I guess sometimes I refer to it just as the Akash.
The Akash.
Yeah, I think of the Akash more as like the energy field that it exists in, right? Inside the quantum field at that particular frequency, where
Yes.
you have access to, you know, whatever you have access to in that moment. You don't ever have access necessarily to everything, right? But
Right.
whatever you're able to access in any
So
given moment.
so I can't go and like spy on my neighbor or anything like that.
With their permission, you could. If you had their
Really?
permission to open their records,
Wow.
then you could, look at the records of someone else, but you would have to have their permission.
Interesting.
And
Now,
your intention would have to be pure. You couldn't,
yeah,
the guy, so there's certain, what would you call them? They're almost like guardians of the
th-
books,
that
right?
was my next
So they
question.
wouldn't let you, if your heart wasn't pure in what you were doing and your intention wasn't pure, they wouldn't let you see anything anyway. So it wouldn't make any sense to do that.
Yes. Yes. So, can anybody go there? Can anybody gain access to them if their intentions are pure? And who guards the records?
Okay, so yes, if your intentions are pure and you can align with the frequency that the records are on, then of course you get access. And of course, that's just like any skill, it just takes time to align with that frequency, right? Whenever we're trying to achieve a higher frequency, anything,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, and that's how it was for me. Like I heard about the records through hand analysis. And like I was telling you earlier, Nori, when we
Yeah.
were just chatting, I have hand analysis training, and I really believe after I found out what the records were, that your hand lines are a stamp of that energy on your hand, which
Wow.
which completely makes sense, right? The hands are an expression of the heart. The heart is where all of this energy exists anyway. So when I found that out, it was like, oh, well, I'm studying hand analysis. I'm really studying how someone's Akashic records can show up and how we can interpret that through the hands. But then, of course, I was curious about like what you're saying, like, I want to go there, like, I want to be in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
energy. What's that about? So I just had to keep practicing, and I got really frustrated sometimes. Like it's not working. I would try like, YouTube methods, people that I found online. I found this one man and I bought, some of his audios, and it just for some reason wasn't working. I just kept trying. And then one day I broke through.
Wow.
One day I did, and and I could hear so clearly everyone speaking to me, and I could see different ascended masters kind of like floating past,
Wow.
and it was so amazing. And I remember being in that session, just on my own in my bedroom for 3 hours. I just didn't want to close out because it was just like, wow. And then because I had such a strong connection finally, because I had brought my vibration there,
Yes.
that I felt like I was in the records for like a couple days.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Because I was because I had expanded something within myself, and then
Yes.
to really like bring myself back down into this experience took me a minute. I was fine with it. I was just so happy I finally did it. But there was something in me, how we just get that
Mm.
that pull, that intrinsic feeling like there's something here, don't give up.
Yes.
Don't give up. And had I given up one time before I broke through, I don't know what my life would be completely different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So, Linda said, um, are you able to alter your records or are they already written? That's a great question.
Right. It's a beautiful question. Absolutely. So when you're ready to, I call it transcend a pattern, right? So we have patterns that stem from either we created them in this lifetime or we created them in another lifetime. And the way that I teach this is when you're ready, if a pattern becomes aware, you become aware of the pattern, right? Otherwise, you're just sort of unaware, it's operating in the shadow, you don't even know it's happening.
Yes.
But when you're ready to step out of it and transcend that, then it comes into your awareness, right? And there's
Yes.
work that you can do energetically in your Akashic records to release that patterning, right?
Wow.
And then
That's
it
great.
releases from your energy field, right? And you don't have to keep having that repeat pattern, or that triggers are a big one that
Yeah.
bring patterns to our attention, right? Where we get really, really, really triggered by something over and over again, and it can be
Yes.
so hard. So that's a beautiful thing that I've found that you can do in the records, and you can heal a trigger so completely and so amazingly that you can be sitting there in a situation. I mean, there are situations where certain family situations where I would be bawling, just leave and just feel completely diminished, like
Yes.
just, you know, bawling my eyes out for days on end, right? I've healed triggers so completely that I could be sitting in front of the same person. They could say anything, and I'm just sitting there
Really?
like, I'm so blissed out. Like, I don't even notice, right? They're just doing them like they
Oh my
always were,
God.
but they're not pushing my buttons anymore. So
That's
it's like you can uninstall a button. We installed
that's
the buttons, right? We can also uninstall our own buttons once we become aware. Now, things that we're not ready to transcend, then
right.
they're not going to come into our awareness, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so you can't do any harm in doing it, because if it's not in your awareness, then it's just not time, if that
That's
makes sense.
amazing. That's amazing. That's that makes a really good case to want to go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
So,
amazing.
in that vein, can anything bad or uncomfortable happen when you go there?
I have had people have some strange experiences where they just either weren't fully understanding the information that was being shown to them. They just, because from the personality perspective, they were perceiving it more as, something scary or whatever, but none of it's meant to be scary.
Right.
So when you're fully connected, and there's been times where I had one client once, she was on her own. We weren't in a session together, but she told me about it later. She said that she didn't connect all the way, and she had kind of a weird experience, not super scary or anything, but just she would just wanted to know what was going on. And I said, just if that happens, just close out, because sometimes we can connect to the astral plane, and that's not as high as where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
close out and come back later. and go back in if you're having an experience like that. But usually, if anything ever happens that's uncomfortable, I just call in my guides, right? And I usually have them right there anyway. And then I'll just say, what's going on? Like, how can I understand this better? And 9 times out of 10, it's just the images that they're showing our consciousness, we're perceiving as
Yes.
something scary. Like, I remember one time I got a gift. This sounds scary, but once they explained to me what it was, I was fine. And it was a box and it had a skeleton hand in it.
Okay.
And I was like, what is this gift is really creeping me out, right? Like, what does this mean? But then it ended up being like, this, I can't remember I asked more questions around it. And so I kind of went into panic mode first. And then I was like, no, it's not meant to be scary. It's not meant to be scary. Just calm down. And then, you know, I took the skeleton out and somehow it became a glove. And then it was like this healing hand. And it was like, they were explaining to me, it was like me reclaiming that ability from another lifetime. Like I saved it in the box so that when I was ready one day, I would open up the gift again and reclaim the healing, the ability to heal, you know, in that way. Yeah. So it's not meant to be scary. That's a long answer to your
No, it's
question.
a good answer. It's a great answer. Absolutely. So good. So anybody can go there. How do you get there?
So so you can go there as long as you're pure of heart and your intentions are pure. So if you have, you know, if there's more work to do around purifying your heart, then that will come up, right? As if you're desiring to access the records and you're working on that, then of course, whatever it is to purify your heart is going to come up and that's going to happen. And of course, your intentions have to be pure. You can't be going in with the intention to, like you said, spy on your neighbor, or if there would be no reason for you to do what you're doing, if it would have no benefit to you or someone else, the guardians of the records would you just wouldn't be able to see anything because you wouldn't have a high purpose in showing up, right, in that place.
Yeah.
So yes, anyone can do it as long as they're pure of heart and their intentions are pure. And then, of course, how do you do it? Like I was explaining my experience. Well, there's a whole bunch of ways. I teach one way. There's lots of teachers out there that teach all different ways. I teach a prayer process because my guides downloaded the prayer to me after I had been accessing and using other people's methods. I said, can I have my own, right? And I was working with a woman who said, you know, when you're ready to teach the records, you'll be downloaded your own prayer. And then as a teacher, you'll share your prayer with other people and then same process, right? And when they're ready, they'll have their own download. So I just asked one day, you know, ask and you shall receive, right? Yes. I asked and I downloaded it right there on the spot. And I was just like, holy cow, this is amazing. And then I've loved my prayer, of course, ever since, because it came to me through my records. So, you know, of course, at one point I saved it there at some time. I'm sure I wrote it in another, you know, it's all happening at the same time, but I'm sure I wrote it in another experience at some point. It's in my records, it's my prayer. And I brought it back out into this reality. So there are other ways. There's meditations that you can do. Gosh, I seriously tried everything. There's, you know, other people have prayers that they use. So if you go on YouTube, you can see that there's multiple ways. If you come to my, you know, one of my workshops, I take you in to the records and I use my prayer. I say it silently, but the energy of it is still there. And then I have you say your name out loud throughout the process. And then anyone, of course, that is my student, I teach them my prayer. And then they use that until they're downloaded their own. So I've had a couple students that eventually were given their own prayer, which was really cool and something to celebrate. Like, that's awesome.
Rite of passage there, you know.
Exactly.
Linda said, if you don't close out properly, people can misunderstand that as scary. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to, but sometimes if you don't close your records after you've been in, you can feel sort of spaced out because it's like you're in two different it's like you're in two different frequencies at once. Like you're in the frequency of the records and then you're trying to be in the frequency of this experience, and you do
Yes.
get that feeling like, okay, I'm in two different places. How can I get fully,
Yes. Like
into
that
this
feeling
one?
you're just not in your body. You're like in
Yeah,
the spacey,
yeah,
yeah. That
yeah. You don't ever actually leave your body, but right, you get
right.
that feeling of like I gotta get back in here. So then you'll realize later, oh, I left the records open.
Clean
That's
up after
why this,
yourself.
yeah. So then you remember to close them. But I haven't, for me, if Linda has a specific experience maybe that she could share, I have not had that happen for me
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
that the biggest thing that has happened to people is just before you kind of like really memorize that frequency of being in the records, kind of stopping on the astral. And then because the astral can be kind of weird, right?
yes.
Like
Definitely.
anything that's ever been manifested exists on the astral. So that
Yeah.
could be like weird stuff,
Yeah.
good stuff, whatever, like
Yeah.
any kind of stuff. Like I don't want to label it as bad or good, but just
Right.
anything, right? Anything's
Yes.
game on the astral. So it's not really necessarily where you want to hang out when your intention is to be in the records, because it's a
Right.
higher,
Right. It's
records
like
is a higher
not the best
vibration.
part of town.
Right, not the the best part. Sometimes parts of it are like the bad part of town. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's funny. Um,
Yeah.
so Ange, I can find out anything, past, present, and future, because it all exists in the same time there. Anything that I really want to know about myself. So if I go there and access the record for the future and have an experience regarding what I learned there, that's going to evoke the change in me, like an epigenetic change if it was health. Is that true?
Um, Let me think of how could I phrase that? So basically when, okay, so let's go back to a question from before. When
Okay.
you can you change your records, which is what Linda said,
Yes.
which is in combination with what you're saying. So when you're asking to remove something from your energy that you've carried for however long in linear time, right? Could be multiple lifetimes, however long you want to work on that until the moment when you awaken to it and go, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, the
Yeah.
jig is up, right? And
Exactly.
so you're basically uninstalling a button. Like, that's how I describe it. Like, we installed these buttons for
Yes.
our growth.
Yes.
People press them. That's not their fault that they press them. There are buttons, right? So
Yes.
we uninstall a button. Now, I do believe that you, of course, you are creating your future, and there are a whole bunch of potential futures for you that you could look at in the records.
Yes.
I don't necessarily go into the records to look at the future. Now, removing a button and then discovering what future timeline you've opened up to and the frequency of that timeline can be really, really helpful,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's one way that I use the records, is to, basically uninstall something.
Very
So we
good.
clear it,
Yeah.
whatever word you want to use, right? We clear something from the records.
Yes.
We're saying that, we've learned all that we need to know from this, and we're taking all of this knowledge, all this learning with us. However, we don't have to have the trigger anymore. We don't have to have that pattern anymore,
Right.
whatever the thing is, right?
Yes.
And then in doing that, yes, you're creating a new experience, because there's going to be a change that's going to happen, right? A change will happen in your personality, your frequency, your neural pathways will shift,
Yes.
because you've changed something in your energy field. Everything that we see is taking information from the field,
Yeah.
right? And becoming what it is because of what the field is saying. It's
Yes.
not the opposite, right? So if we're asking, because we're the master of our energy, so if we're asking to uninstall the button, then of course eventually it'll be reflected back. Sometimes that could be that day, or it could be, when you're working with the quantums, the rule of thumb is usually 3 days. So it takes 3 days to fully have it reflected back to you when you're working in the quantums.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Did
Very
that
cool.
answer that the
Yes, that was
question?
really good.
Okay, good.
That was really so. The purpose of this show is to increase well-being. Can you give some examples how going to the Akashic Records or accessing them can help people increase their well-being?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first thing for me that I noticed when I was finally able to access my records was the compassion that was flooding through me, and that being connected to the Akash, which is like the heart of spirit, right? I felt that Christ consciousness flowing through me,
Oh,
right? It was like I opened to that at a much bigger level than what I was accessing before. And so with that, you feel that deep compassion for every person's journey. And
wow.
as you're looking at your own journeys, it's like, wow, I have been the villain. I've been the saint, right?
Yes.
I've been the nun, the priest, the
The prostitute.
horrible,
Yeah, sure.
whatever leader, all the things. Like you look at it and then you have this compassion for every person's journey that is, the depth of it is just indescribable, where it's like, and you don't want to change anyone anymore after that. It's like, this
Wow.
is just their journey. I have a cat visiting. This is their journey. And in that level of acceptance of yourself and other people's journeys comes in, right? Along with the compassion, where it's just like, I fully accept that this is what they need to do and where they have to be. And there's just like a click. And it's all with consciousness, right? Because as you're connecting, you're raising your consciousness. Like each time I was trying to connect, my consciousness was coming up enough to where I could have that moment where I opened and connected to that frequency, right? So
Yes.
you're expanding your consciousness as you're doing it. And really, I mean, what keeps coming to me is you're really aligning with that Christ consciousness, right? That is coming in through your heart.
Beautiful.
So you're coming into alignment with that. And then of course, along with that, the side effect of that is that compassion of everybody just has their journey, and you feel that, just calm in knowing that it's all perfect, whatever it is that they're choosing, and everybody's journey is eternal, right? There's no concern about, oh my gosh, if they mess this up, like, geez, they've really messed it up forever.
Yes.
No, they're on this eternal journey of becoming, just like you and me. And I don't know, that's what's coming to me to answer your question, is one of the benefits. Now,
I
another one is healing a trigger. Like I was
That's
saying,
that's
for
worth the
me,
price of the admission. Yes.
that's the worth the price of the admission. Yes. Because for me, I had some doozies,
Yeah.
like just where, and I feel like the unworthiness would come up, and just
Mm.
that being misunderstood, that deep, like, everyone needs to understand me. Like, why don't they understand? And just, oh my gosh, it just would invoke just tears and anger and like this mishmash of
Yeah.
emotion that I couldn't even sort out. I just had to like sit with it and just be in this pile, right? So when I learned that I could heal a trigger doing this, and honestly, my guides fed me this stuff. They just like, who is it? The beautiful woman that she does kind of similar work, Dolores Cannon. I know
Yes.
she's passed, but the way she describes it is her guides would spoon feed her this information. And so this wasn't all like overnight, right? Like they spoon fed me. They asked me to come to the records each day after I could finally connect, and they would just spoon feed me bits of information bit by bit, right?
That's
As much
nice.
as I could handle in the
Yeah.
moment. And some days that was a big spoonful, and some days it was like a tiny little
Sure.
teaspoon, right?
Sure.
So when I learned how to heal a trigger, and they showed me how to do that, and I healed one so completely that it was like, I was crying and in a ball a few days before, and then in the presence of that person a few days later, and just la ti da, like they could say
Wow.
whatever they wanted. I was so calm in my energy, right? Just
Amazing.
so at peace in my energy. It was like, this, like you said, this is worth the price of the admission. Like,
Yeah.
this is so profound. I
Yeah.
could not believe how profound that was. And then, just over time, I've started to call that uninstalling a button,
I like
right?
it.
Because it really is, then it really makes you see that
Yes.
these are our buttons. Like
Yeah.
people, and there are people out there acting however they act, doing whatever it is they have to do.
Yes.
And they cannot bother us at all, or they can bother us a whole lot. And when they're bothering us a lot, we know
Yeah.
it's our button, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that part is fabulous. Let's see, I wrote down a couple of things here when we were getting ready. Another thing is ideas and inspiration can be fabulous. So going into the records, say, of like a business, or if you
Yeah.
have a project
Yeah.
that you're tuning into, like something, maybe there's a book that you want to write, or you've had a project on your mind, something you want to create, you can go into the records and you can look at, or you can hear, however you perceive information, right? You can hear from your guides, or you can see, or you can just know and have a download, right? You can look at what you laid out for that already, right? So kind of the structure that you already created exists,
Wow.
right? So then you can get ideas, as far as like, maybe you're like, gosh, I have this project in mind, but I can't think of a name for it. You can go into the records and you can look at how you laid it out as like a blueprint for the project. And then sometimes it'll be like, oh, the name is whatever,
Right.
whatever comes to you, like, oh,
Yeah.
there's the name. So
Wow.
I've had lots of cool, and I feel like what's made that so easy, especially in business, because that's where I've used that the most, is it feels a little bit like you're just picking an apple off of a tree, like an apple that you already created. And you're just like, oh, there's
It's
that
good.
apple. I already laid this out in the quantums, like, in another experience, I already laid this out, right?
Yeah.
And you're just going to there and just like, oh, there's the apple. And then it's so much easier
Wow.
to lay everything out. Now, I have had it happen where something really wasn't ready to be birthed yet, right?
Yes.
And then I haven't had that same experience. I haven't really gotten the information, where it's not fully laid out in the blueprint. It's not really, the timing isn't right, or whatever. So that can happen too. And then you can just know, okay, let's
It's not
just gonna
time.
wait a little longer. Timing's not right. It's okay. And you can check in another time. So those are just a few things that I had jotted down. And then of course, the sense of peace that you get from connecting, right? Because you're
Yes.
connecting with this higher consciousness and allowing that Christ consciousness to flood you. And it just brings so much peace into your life,
Yeah.
that that's the thing that I think I noticed the most right off the bat, was being in the records is like being plugged into still point. You know what I mean? Like, if, like, how when you reach still point and you're in a massage, or you're
Yes.
getting acupuncture, and it's like this, feels like this rare occasion.
Yes.
Once you can access the records, you can experience still point,
Uh,
right? And then eventually, as you're accessing and raising your consciousness, and you keep doing that, eventually you just are at still point. You just
wow.
exist at still point. It's just where you are. So that part has been amazing too. So hopefully
That's
that
so
answers. That's a
that
long answer.
no, I love this information. So, and if you go and you find out, okay, it's not time yet, I mean, that saves a lot of time for you in your waking life, right? So you're not churning, thinking, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. But you go to the records and you're like, okay, it's not time yet. Then you can just go back to your life and be peaceful until it is time. And then that they give you the information in the portions that you can assimilate it is fabulous. I mean,
Yeah.
so you can't come back overloaded, or, maybe you come back wanting a little bit more if it's as good as you say it is. I'd be like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely how I was in the beginning. Like, and they
Did
said,
you
come
go
here
every day?
every day. And I
You
was
did?
just, I was thrilled to have that connection. I'm still thrilled. It's just my experience of it now is a little bit different than it was when I was craving, because I was craving so much of the information that was in my records that I had saved for myself to access later, right?
Yes.
But yeah, you really don't end up getting overloaded, like you said, because it is in bite-sized bits. And then when you're out of the records, then you experience all those synchronicities, like, oh, they told me that, and now
Wow.
there's a little angel statue on my mantle that I didn't notice that before. When did I put that there? So
Right.
so you get, just like, how that experience can be with synchronicities. So
Yes.
that part's really fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So, Ange, tell us about your adventures that you have coming up with the Akashic Records.
Yeah, I would love to. So the one that I've just created is called Akashic Records 7-Day Adventure Workshop. And I like to theme my adventures. So this one has a life purpose theme. since my background in hand analysis is around life purpose. So
Yes.
we're going to do a life purpose theme in there. There's a Facebook group. The group is called, I think that is the name of the group. So the group, it's searchable. If anyone wants to join, you're welcome to join. It's a totally free adventure. The name, if you search it, and we could probably link it here too.
Yeah, sure.
Akashic Records 7-Day Adventure Workshop is the
Okay.
name of the workshop.
Okay.
And once you join, inside the events tab, you'll see that you can sign up. There's 2 Zooms. They're on the 20th and the 20th. So Tuesday the 20th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and Tuesday the 27th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. You can join both Zooms. And then today I did a live just talking about what we're going to do in each of the Zooms, and then in the in-between time in the 7 days. So you can catch that, but just to recap, you just real fast on what we'll do. In the first Zoom, we're going to talk about the different life purpose archetypes, and there's 10 different archetypes of life purpose, and see where you're resonating with that. Then we're going to go into the Akashic Records, meet with your guides that help you with your life purpose and mission specifically.
Very
And
cool.
then ask some questions about what are the next steps for you, like what's ready to be birthed from you now, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we get in that space where, we're sort of like, we're comfortable where we're at, yet spirit wants to birth something new, yet we're kind of like staying in the mundane.
Yes.
We've all been there. And,
Yes.
this workshop is really about like allowing spirit to come through with whatever that new, I keep getting new growth because it's spring, right? Like that new growth that wants to come through you right now. So that's what we're going to do on the first one. Then in between, I'm going to do a few lives about some of the things we've talked about, like the benefits of working in your records. I want to tell people that through some live videos, and do some card pulls and just kind of fun things like that. On the weekend, I'm going to go to a sacred site. I haven't told anybody where it is, but it's a surprise because because I already have that plan and it just lined up perfectly. And then I don't know if I can go live there. If I don't have service, I'll just make a video. I'm going to go into the records of the sacred site, because you can do that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's a publicly owned sacred site. There's no ownership of it. I can go into the records of the site. So I plan to do that. I'm really excited.
Cool.
And then Tuesday, we'll meet again and talk about some of the gifts that are, so this comes from hand analysis. From that information, we're not going to really talk about the hands in particular, but we're going to talk about some of the soul gifts that we bring in and, start activating at different times, different ages in our life, and what those can look like. And see where people are resonating there. We're going to talk about some of the more common ones, and then go into your records and, find out more information, and then activate any gifts that are, of course, ready to be activated now. So it could be intuitive gifts, or, it could be we're activating different levels of our DNA. It could be something like that. Whatever it is, unique to the person wherever they're at in their journey. So that's kind of the plan for the 7-day adventure, which actually is going to be more than 7 days because we've already started, right?
Yeah.
I did the live today. So I'm excited.
And you briefly touched upon hand analysis, and John was just asking, what is hand analysis?
Oh, okay. So hand analysis is kind of like I was saying before. I feel now, studying all these different modalities, that your hands contain your Akashic record, basically your karmic energy stamped on your hand, right? Like, what is your life purpose? What is your life lesson? What are your challenges? What are your gifts? What is this whole package? And then the personality is the vehicle that you're bringing it through, right? How did you want to express this? Really shows up in your hands. It's kind of like a roadmap, right?
Amazing.
Like an instruction manual.
Amazing.
So a lot of it's in the fingerprints, which don't change, right? And then the other pieces are in the palm. So it's different than palm reading. It's not predictive. It's all having to do with life purpose, life lesson, life school challenges, gifts, and how to work. Because everything has 2 sides, right? Like, as we know in life, right? We have the contrast side, we have the shadow potential of things, and then we have the light side, and the side that, you know, where we're feeling those high vibrations, right? And this is like where we want to hang out. But in order to have a growth experience, we go into contrast, right? We go there, we learn, we dabble, and then we come out and we find ourselves in a higher frequency, right? So it's about how can you work with these energies, right? Like they all have both potentials going on all the time.
Very, very cool.
Hopefully that answers that.
Thank you. Yes. So,
Good.
going back to your adventures and your offerings, do you have like any offerings that you do annually, or do you have any classes that you run, all the time, or are they all new creations?
So I do my traditional Akashic Records training at least once annually now, since I first started it from the very first time. I ran the first one in a group setting in 2019. And then I ran two back to back of the same course in a row in 2020. And now this year I'm going to run that course one time. So I plan on running it once. It's my traditional Akashic Records training. It went from 7 weeks to 8 weeks to 9 weeks now,
Wow.
because it was too short at 7, and then of course it was too short at 8. So now it's going to be 9, and it gives time to have breaks in between to where we're not. So it'll be 3 months long this year. I'm going to do a 3-month Akashic Records training. So that'll be coming up after. I'll have details about that after this, as this other class is wrapping up. And then I've done it once, and it's just winding down. I did a 9-month Akashic Records journey, and we go through every
How
aspect of
was
your
that?
life.
Wow.
It's been I have grown so much, just all
Wow.
of us. And, I mean, even as when you're the instructor, like you're in this boat with everybody,
Yes.
and Nori, like
Yeah.
you're growing with everybody, and just the fabulous growth that we've had. It started in September, it ends in May, and we went through every aspect of your life, right? So we
Wow.
went through relationships, self-love. We just finished the abundance and prosperity portion of it. We're going to do a physical well-being part coming up here next week. So, and all kinds of different healings came up, and I had no plan, no modules, nothing. I just said, here's what you can expect from this. And my guides are saying, we could be covering any one of these things any week. And so I just would wait for the day of the class, and I would just get the download of what I was sharing. I would download the slides, all the information, and then the journey in the Akashic Records where we did, either the energy work or ask questions, whatever we were doing. So it went through all of them, and career too. We did purpose and career, self-expression, however you see. Some people don't like the word career, but however you're expressing yourself in the world, whether you're being paid for it or not. So we went through a section on that too.
Wow.
So it's been a huge
Wow.
growth experience for me to just trust
Yeah.
that each time we're on the day of the class, I'm going to have everything I need to offer it, right? I just had to really relax into working with
So good.
my higher self and my guides. And yeah, it was big. It was
Yeah, it
big
is.
for
It's
me,
huge. Yeah. Yeah.
because I can be such a planner, and it was like, no, that's not how things are done in the new energy, right? Like now that we're experiencing 5th dimension and higher, it's like we go on point with the energy of the day. And
Yeah.
it's, wow, okay. So it takes some getting used to.
So, Angie, I just want to go back. So the class that you were talking about prior to the 9 month, is that where you train people to access Akashic Records and maybe take people to the records? What happens in that class?
Exactly. So yes, so that's my basic level Akashic Records training, where I teach people the method that I use to access, and then they use that method, of course, until, like I said, until their guides give them a different method or their own prayer, however that works for them with their guides. So we use my process. I teach my process. I teach the healing process for uninstalling a button
Yay.
and all of those things, which are really magical. And this is great information to have for yourself, or if you are a coach or a healer that works with other people. Either way, I've had both types of people take my course. I've had people that want to use it for themselves, for their own ascension journey, and they love it, and they never, use the processes for anyone else, or, they never open anyone else's records or anything, and that's great. And then I've had some people that want to use it with their Reiki or with their coaching in certain circumstances or whatever. And so they'll use the process, the healing process, and work in other people's records with them, right? So I've had both kinds of people take the class. Both benefit the same, right? Like, I mean, why I teach from the perspective of healing yourself is because you're not going to understand it unless you heal yourself with it, and then turn around and assist other people by using the process. So I teach it through your own records. We're working on your own self, working on your own stuff, right?
Yes.
So some people move on to use that process for other people. I do go way more in depth, especially for people that find that they really love the Akashic Records. I go much more in depth in the 9-month because you get to see, and then I have a certification that goes with the 9-month now. I used to do it with my shorter, but it was just too rushed. So now my certification goes with the 9-month, like for people that really want to, are really serious about bringing it into their, into a business of some sort that they have, or into their healing practice.
Wow.
So that's why I created the 9-month, because it gives people time, because you have to go through so much of your own healing, right? So it gives the space and time to do that, and really brings it to a whole nother level where, so that's just wrapping up. So the first one is ending, and oh my gosh, I just
When is
loved
the
it.
next one going to begin? That sounds like a huge endeavor.
It's so much fun. It'll be September. So when I got the idea and download for that, it was to be September through May, just like the school year, right? Like the traditional.
Very cool.
So 9 months, and it's like a birth, right? It's
Yes.
9 months.
Yes. Good point. Really good point.
Yeah. I think the tagline on it was like birthing your truth self or something like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Ange, tell people, for whoever doesn't know, because I can't imagine people don't know you, tell people how to find you.
Okay, sure. So they can find me at, so my Facebook name is Angie Kraft Meldahl. It's hyphenated. Or you can find my business page is Life Purpose Pathfinder LLC. And then my Facebook group, which I encourage you all to become a part of, because this is like an ongoing, this is beyond the 7-day adventure thing. This is just one that I'm always posting in, I'm always sharing in. It's the best place to find my content is Life Purpose Pathfinders with an S. So just the plural of Life Purpose Pathfinder. So that's a few places you can find me. My everything has the same name. My website is Life Purpose Pathfinder. So those are the basic ways. My email is lifepurposepathfinder@gmail.
Yeah, Linda actually dropped the link to your group, so that's wonderful. People can find you.
Yay, thanks,
Ange, I
Linda.
had no idea you were doing all of this, and what a gift you are to humanity right now. I mean, just being able to access the records and access that level of compassion that you were talking about, to understand that everything is really correct, no matter how bad it seems, or how horrific, that there is a purpose, to things that are happening. And that kind of download of peace, then be able to navigate life now, right now, in that level of peace and calm is just, the biggest gift I think you can give people right now. So thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for letting
Really
me
good.
talk about it. As you can
Oh,
see, I could talk anyone's ear off about the Akashic Records,
really,
because
yeah,
I
really.
do love it. I definitely know that this is my purpose and mission on the planet to, and when people are accessing, one of the other benefits I just want to say real fast is you're bridging heaven and earth, right? You're bringing down the super high vibrational energy into the planet. What could be better than that, right? With everything that's going on, like you said,
Yeah.
it's huge.
So
So
it's
thank you.
creating heaven on earth for yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should end on that because that's powerful. Thank
Thank
you, Ange. You have to come back and talk with us again and maybe bring your cards.
Oh,
We'll
absolutely. I would
play. All
love
right.
to. I would love that. Yes. Tell me when. I'm here.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for the great questions. We'll be back next week and have a wonderful week. Okay. Wow, Ange, awesome. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank
Wow.
you. 40 minutes went
Thank you. Thank
fast.
It did. Oh my gosh. Thank you for letting me do this. You
My
can tell I get
pleasure.
so excited when
Yeah.
I'm talking about the records. Just,
Yeah.
it's been such a profound experience for me.
Yeah, I can totally feel that you are in your lane. Yeah. It's
Thank
undeniable.
Thank
Thanks, Ange.
you.
Yeah. I'll see you
Thank you
next
for
time.
this. It's so good to see you.
Good to
Take
see you
care.
too. Take care.
Okay, I'll talk to
Bye.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.